Good morning. Welcome to Watershed. In whatever way you are showing up this morning, whether it's in person, we are so glad that you're here and hanging out with us. If you're outside, I think it was a little cloudy earlier, but looks like it's gotten a little nicer. So glad that you're here. I want to welcome you also online. I know there's people watching from all over. We'd love for you to introduce yourself and kind of say hi and maybe where you're tuning in from. I want to welcome you this morning if you are here in person or if you're outside and you want to, if you can, if you're able. I want to invite you to stand this morning. We're gonna sing a few songs together, and we want to, again, continue to create space for us to come back together and what it means to be in a room together, what it means for us to sing together and start to connect to one another in that way. So I want to invite you to stand and sing with us. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, yeah. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your faith. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. We'll sing that again. Lay down your burdens. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. Lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are, come as you are, come as you are. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Oh, great are you, Lord. All the earth, let's sing it together. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And this goes out to the worried, and this goes out to the stressed, sorting out a million thoughts running through your head. To everyone that's waiting for better days ahead, they're tired and frustrated and leaving words unsaid. And please don't hold your breath and just breathe. It's a miracle we can breathe. There's power in the way that we breathe. Release your heavy burdens and let everything that has breath praise the Lord. This is why we have breath. Praise the Lord.
Sometimes you're in the desert, sometimes you feel the pain, sometimes He calms sometimes He lets it rain. Please don't hold your breath. Just breathe, 'cause it's a miracle we can breathe. There's power in the way that we breathe. Release your heavy burdens and let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Oh, this is why we have breath. Praise, just breathe, 'cause it's a miracle we can breathe. There's power in the way that we breathe. Release your heavy burdens and let everything that has breath praise the Lord. This is why we have breath. Praise, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. This is why we have breath. Praise the Lord.
Now we're working. Sorry. Thanks. Man, it is, wow, it's good to be in the space. It's good to be in this room. My name's Scott. I'm one of the pastors here at Watershed. And to those of you on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, thank you for being with us. Those of you outside, thank you for being with us this morning. And those of you inside, really grateful to just to be together and to be able to share in these kinds of moments together. So here's what's been happening. We have a lot of you, like this morning, I've met several of you who are brand new. This is literally your first Sunday. Maybe you're new to the area. Maybe a friend has brought you, and you're finding some sense of, all right, this isn't that bad. This is relatively meaningful so far. You saw some things online that you liked, and you're trying to figure out what are some next steps. And so we try to offer sort of this wall of ways for you to sort of jump in to this community here. So we have Prime Time, which is one of our blocks here, has said, listen, we want to host an event that we can invite people to. And so I think it's on the 11th at VBGB Beer Hall and Garden Restaurant at noon, immediately following the service. A bunch of us are going to get together and hang out and just spend time together. We've been doing more of these kinds of hangouts at different locations. I think last week or the week before we had like 60 or 70 of you showed up. And so there just seems to be this joy and this energy and this longing to be in community together and to get to meet each other, maybe take a mask off and see a face and see eyes and the whole thing, right? And so if you're interested in being a part of kind of just a real sort of low hurdle connection, we'd love to have you be a part of that. We also have this experience called Preface, which is, again, a real low hurdle, 3-week Zoom online experience where we get to connect with you, myself, Matt, David, some other pastors here. We're part of that process and really enjoy being in a digital space that allows us to hear what your faith journey looks like these days and what's happening with all of that. We also are offering, for the first time ever in July, we call Preface 2.0. If you've been a part of Preface before, and you're sort of saying, all right, what are some of the next narratives, the next conversations? What are some of the additional tools? Because frankly, it takes tools to really enter this sort of progressive journey that many of us find ourselves on these days. There's resources we need to sort of engage that helps us move forward. And how do we navigate faith? Who is God in this journey? What does community look like? What do we do with things like the scriptures and some of these past stories of Christendom, and how do we integrate those into our lives? And so really looking forward to being a part of that at sort of a 2.0 level. If you're interested, jump in. Please, you can go onto the Watershed app and you can sign up there. Also, if you're interested in being a part of Preface, our sort of 1.0, that's going to be happening in the fall. And again, would love to have you jump into that. Really, really recommend it. Again, low hurdle experience, but it's a way for you to sort of hear who we are and what's underneath the hood. Also, we have a baby dedication coming up July 4th. And we don't have a ton of traditions around here, I guess, but some of them are baby dedications. It's a way for us to say, all right, you come up here, you have your child with you, and we as a village, we as a community come around you. It takes a village to parent and to be a part of this world these days, and so to have others around you in systems and Greenhouse and Blair and all that's going on with our children here, we'd love to have you be a part of that. If you're interested, you can go to the app, the Watershed app under Sunday News, and all this information is there for you to be a part of what's going on. So we also talk often here about what it means to be generous. I know for some of you sitting in your seat, when church talks about money, all of a sudden it goes from, man, this community is sort of pouring into me. Now all they're wanting is to take from me and to take advantage of me and to use me. And we're here to say that's not how we want you to see this. If you feel like that's what we're trying to do, then please disengage the conversation. We want you to know that when you give to this community, it goes into impacting lives. It goes into impacting our city. It goes into impacting people who are saying, I think I'm ready for a second pass of what it means to embrace faith, what it means to embrace God. I thought I left it all, but actually I'm starting to re-engage it again. So if you're interested in investing in the kinds of stuff that we get to do around here, we invite you into that. It's probably no secret that this has not been a banner year in terms of giving and financial situations. So there's always huge needs, especially this time of the year in the summer. So I want to invite you into being generous. If that's something you're interested in doing, you can go to our Watershed app or our website, and you can jump into generosity through those systems. If you have any questions, budgetary questions, how we spend our money, what we do with our resources around here, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is scott@watershedcharlotte.com, and we are a complete open book when it comes to our finances around here. So again, thank you for being with us. Man, this has been incredibly moving this morning, and look forward to the moments ahead.
'Cause everybody loves who they're gonna love. Ooh, let us love who we're gonna love. When the sky goes black and you find yourself looking back, do you want to be that sort of human, that sort of human? 'Cause everybody loves, everybody loves, everybody loves who they're gonna love. Ooh, let us love. 'Cause everybody loves, everybody loves, everybody loves who they're gonna love. Ooh, let us love who we're gonna love. Ooh, let us love who we're gonna love. Ooh, let us love who we're gonna love.
Cause we're all somewhere in the middle. We're all just looking for love to change the world.
Hi, good morning. My name is Callie Robles. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm 17. I'm going to be a senior in the fall, and my family's been going to Watershed for 6 years now, which is a bit wild to me. I love my family. They're great. We're weird, but we're really fun, I promise. But one thing I really love about my family is that we are bicultural. So my dad's from Guatemala, and my mom's from Michigan, but we speak sometimes both English and Spanish at home, and I think that's really cool. But a bit more about my story. So in 8th grade, North Carolina came out with this brand new HB2 law, which limited transgender bathroom use. And through that, I was able to do a lot of research into queer issues, but most importantly, queer identities and all that LGBTQIA+. And a term that really stood out for me was bisexual. And to me, that means someone who's attracted to 2 or more genders. And once I figured out that that was me, after a long period of questioning and doubting, I came out to my parents. And I'm so privileged, but also so grateful that they were accepting of me. My mom actually took me to my first Pride Parade and festival, and that was just such an amazing experience. And after that, I started high school. I had a hard time making friends. It was a bigger school than I was used to. But after I joined my school's GSA, or Gender Sexuality Alliance, I made a lot of great friends. I also joined our local LGBTQ Youth Center. Shout out to Time Out Youth. I made a lot of friends there too, had a lot of great events. And they actually connected me to where I work now. It's an online chat space for LGBTQ youth called QChat. And I get paid to be a part of a chat for an hour and a half each week. Don't tell my boss I do it for free. I really enjoy it. But the part I like about it most, other than interacting with these people I never thought I'd meet otherwise from across the country and basically our time zone, is that I get to do mine in Spanish. I know Watershed, we talk a lot about intersectionality, but that really is why I love my job. I get to talk to people not only about queer issues such as representation or mental health coping strategies, but I get to do it in Espanol. And I get to be both Latina and bisexual, and those identities don't have to be separate labels. I can be both at the same time, like I usually am while online, and that's really amazing. That's also a reason why I started volunteering at Charlotte Pride this year. I get to meet a lot of LGBTQ plus people here in Charlotte, but also people who have multiple identities like me, either Latinx or other things, and that's been really great to join. But the main reason I join all these services and projects is to give back to my community, to provide safe spaces like those I was given. Not necessarily safe spaces from bullying or abuse, although those are important, but I would say they're safe spaces to be authentic, to not feel judged, to not get looked at as that gay girl at school. And so I work with Time Out Youth. I'm part of their speakers bureau, so I get paid to go out and speak about my experience to different meetings and communities that hire us. I also do work with QChat, providing those safe spaces online to youth in the US, but especially with our Spanish chat in the Dominican Republic, in Argentina, in Costa Rica, and a lot of amazing places. I also work with Charlotte Pride again, like I said, to make events in our festival and parade super great for everyone here in Charlotte, and to provide the safe space for LGBTQ youth like I had right after I came out. And another safe space for me has been Watershed. I've been able to be out here, now even more out, and that's really great that I have another safe space to come to every Sunday, whether it's on Facebook or in person. And in the spirit of that authenticity, I'd like to invite you to take a few moments to think about what's saving you right now. Thank you.
Maybe we will get to heaven and realize we were both wrong. Who could throw the sharpest stone, build the biggest throne? Is it really a winner if we both have broken bones? Maybe we will get to heaven and realize we were both wrong. We're all just slapping wrists over why we all exist. Everyone's Armenian and everyone's a Calvinist. Can we tell God from a mimicking? Can we tell love from a promise ring? Can we tell the kingdom from the kingdom where we lay our head down at night? And you are my country. And maybe we will get to heaven and realize we were both wrong. So take a side of a dream that felt more right. Really find a savior on the side of a party line. Maybe we will get to heaven and realize we were both wrong. We all romanticize the static inside our eyes. Can we hear his voice in the sound of a brother's cry? Can we tell God from a midnight king? Can we tell love from a promise ring? Can we tell the kingdom from the kingdom where we lay our heads at night? Gunshots, smoke, clouds, the air I breathe. I'm tired of fighting wars with you and casualty. Can we tell the kingdom from the we tell the kingdom from the kingdom where we lay our head down tonight? Can we tell love from a midnight king? Can we tell love from a promised ring? Can we tell the kingdom from the kingdom where we lay our head down tonight? Gunshots, smoke clouds, we cannot breathe. Tired of fighting wars, you're the casualty. Can we tell the kingdom from the kingdom where we lay our head down tonight? When we get to heaven, both wrong. When we get to heaven, we'll be both wrong.
Good morning. So I came in earlier this morning to prep, and they were practicing that song, and I lifted like a silent prayer that would be the song we'd end today on, and it's not. So energy's here, and I just wanted to level set. We're gonna probably drop that down. I don't know how to match that, so my apologies in advance. Before I do start, I just want to take a minute and acknowledge that we're in this sort of limbo space where some of us are in the building and we're wearing masks, some of us are outside with the liberty to choose, and some of us are still dialing in online. And I have been watching those numbers on Facebook, and I know it looks like it's dwindling, the participants, as the pendulum swings to more of us coming into the space. And I just want to take a moment and thank you for however you're showing up here, and for the energy that you're bringing to this fellowship. I know it's a hard space for us to navigate this post-pandemic. When do I feel comfortable unmasking? When do I wear a mask? I think that some of us are dealing with, to be quite frank, maybe some post-traumatic trauma in regards to all of this. And so I want to acknowledge that and just thank you again for however you're here. I'm Sean. If you look online, I'm billed as a teaching pastor, but I'll be honest, that title makes me squirm a little bit. It might be imposter syndrome. Maybe it's because it feels like it comes with a lot of responsibility. I'm not quite sure. But I'm here all the same, thankful that you're meeting me with grace today. We're in the middle of a series that asks us to consider how we see other people, especially other people we don't understand or agree with. And as a recap, here are the biases that Scott, Matt, and David have already covered. We have confirmation, complexity, complementary, contact, conservative liberal, comfort, and complacency. Today, I'm going to delve a little bit into developmental psychology, and I feel, again, in the spirit of being transparent, that I should tell you I have 0 degrees in psychology. I don't have any degrees in any ology, to be quite fair, but I am a storyteller. I'm a writer, and as such, I study human behavior closely. And as such, I feel like I brush up against developmental psychology in my observations of that human nature. But no real degree in psychology, so send the bills to Scott or Matt for damages, okay? Cool? Cool. Cognitive development refers to our brain's development towards maturity. When I think about that word maturity, I think about reaching later half of life, reaching spiritual maturity. As we move through life with its complex set of lessons, losses, gains, blessings, and all the things, there is a direction to maturity. And I'm paraphrasing the words of Franciscan friar Richard Rohr. This series has been delving into a podcast, Learning How to See, and it has Brian McLaren and Reverend Jackie Lewis as sort of a trinity there, along with Richard Rohr. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, there is a direction to maturity. You become dualistic in your thinking, less binary, less violent. As we move to cognitive maturity or higher levels of consciousness, we are more able to include others, more able to embrace agape love, which is Christianity's definition of the highest form of love, unconditional love. To reach this higher plane of consciousness is to ditch binary ways of thinking and embrace duality, or maybe you've heard of it as plurality or ambiguity. I've talked about both of these from stage before when talking about my own sense of identity and mestiza consciousness. I continue to make tiny, small moves towards unyoking my bicultural, bilingual heritage from binary ways of thinking to what Gloria Anzaldúa refers to as a mestiza consciousness, an embrace of the ambiguity that my multicultural upbringing affords me. Binary halves us. Duality, or plurality, allows me to see my margins and privilege as the layered organism it is. Duality allows me to embrace all of myself, even the sides of me that might seem in direct opposition of each other. Duality embraces the concept that there are multiple ways to see. Callie was a beautiful example of that just a few moments ago. Duality, friends, I think paves the way for agape love. Agape love is transformational love. We get glimpses of it as adults. I'm convinced if we pay attention to children, we see God in the flesh in our midst expressing agape love all the time. But something happens as we grow. We get bullied. We're told we don't fit in. We see ourselves the flawed ways others do. We condition ourselves to conform. And in the process, we break ourselves. In the process, we lose sight of agape and instead look for reciprocity. Don't get me wrong, looking for reciprocity for even-scaled relationships of mutual benefit isn't always a bad thing. But in our pursuit of this, we move away from transformational relationships and move into transactional ones. Transactional relationships exist in lower levels of consciousness, which is to say they keep us from being our mature, highest selves, and instead lock us into consciousness bias. Consciousness bias is this notion that our brains see from a location. A person's level of consciousness or their cognitive maturity makes seeing some things possible and makes seeing other things impossible. Location here, I think, is both physical and positional, and here's what I mean by that. Our identity is impacted by place. We here in Charlotte live in the New South, and we don't need to look far to see how entrenched place and identity are. But identity is also locational in terms of position. Often, we grow up espousing the ideologies of our parents or our community, our church. Our position, female, male, non-gender conforming, conservative, liberal, rural, urban, even the roles we play, parent, child, partner, and so on, impart meaning onto our identity. I teach at a smallish liberal arts school here in Charlotte, and often my students fall into two camps on that first day of class. For some, our university is far less diverse than their high school was. We're about 20 to 30% minority students, right? A lot of first-gen students as well. For others, though, it is far, far more diverse than they ever imagined. For a lot of my students, it's the first time that they're sharing a classroom space with students who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, or outwardly LGBTQIA. Because they're in a new place, my students experience a disorientation of sorts. That place and identity becomes a little unsettling because their schemas are shifting to make sense of the new space they find themselves in. Physical and positional places impact our identity. Let me explain this a different way. Growing up, my Catholic religious foundation was both positional in location and physical in location. I grew up in New Orleans and then in Florida. I'm from Costa Rica. Costa Rican American, Deep South. To be sure, the Catholic tradition is a doctrine that has given me much. I love the sacredness of certain traditions and rituals, but I recognize that parts of my Catholic faith nudged me towards a transactional relationship with Jesus. In the Catholic Church of my youth, purgatory is not like Dante's Inferno, but like a real place. For real. And we could pray. I remember we would pray for the souls in purgatory, and if we prayed hard enough, we could get them out of purgatory. And I realize as I say this, I should have questioned that as a child, but I didn't, so I just prayed. That is a transactional relationship. The sacrament of confession, where I would periodically tell my sins to a priest in exchange for a clean slate, P.S., which could never stay clean, transactional relationship. The sacrament of confirmation, where I stood before my faith community and outwardly expressed my Catholicism, transactional relationship. Baptism, I was a baby, I was a passive participant, but yet baptism marked the ability to erase the original stain of original sin, transactional relationship. When I look back at my childhood, which I need to tell you was mostly wonderful, was extremely well structured, full of love, but not without its problems, I see that the 7 sacraments of the Catholic faith, as they were presented to me, prefaced a transactional relationship towards salvation. If I wanted the rewards of heaven, here's what I could do earthside to gain God's favor and thus ensure my own piece of real estate beyond the pearly gates. The idea that I could usher in heaven here and now on earth wasn't a truth I discovered until I stepped physically away from the Catholic Church and allowed for other expressions of God to enter into my consciousness. In college, I was confronted with folks from all types of faith traditions and none. And at first I was startled by the difference. But as I allowed myself to listen and to learn, I realized that other people's faiths only stood to strengthen mine. As I was introduced to new traditions and read the sacred texts of the Torah, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, I saw beautiful patterns of sameness, tenets like caring for the stranger, loving with grace, models of servant leadership. But I also saw lovely differences that helped me make sense of the world. The Harvard University has a pluralism project, and they talk about defining religious diversity and pluralism in this way. They ask the question, how do we live together in this society of increasing diversity? That's a critical question. I did not have a word for religious pluralism back then. Religious pluralism is not about diversity alone. Diversity is a fact, right? Watershed is diverse or it's not. We could quantify the ways in which we're diverse. Inclusion, pluralism, is how we engage that diversity. Pluralism also moves us beyond simple tolerance. Again, action is required. It's not just a live and let live, but in your separate corners mentality. Folks invested in religious pluralism actively seek out dialogue in order to better understand others' points of views. When I teach, I often meet students who are hesitant to engage in religious difference in the classroom, operating out of a real fear that engaging in dialogue means challenging their own deeply held beliefs or that I am seeking to change them. And by the way, I could sub in political views and a lot of other different strongly held beliefs there as well. I understand that fear, but that's not what religious pluralism or any pluralism is about. And I'm quoting here verbatim from the Pluralist Project, which I think is a great starting point for anyone who wants to research this more. They explain that the new paradigm of pluralism does not require us to leave our identities and commitments behind. For pluralism is the encounter of commitments. It means holding our deepest differences, even our religious ones, not in isolation, but in relationship to one another. In short, religious pluralism requires commitment, or in my liberation theologist lens, compromiso. a term that means this notion of being committed fully to other people in agape love. I didn't think of framing my faith as a worldview. College was certainly transformational for me, primarily because of the transformational relationships I made there. I think of the Reverend Diane Mowry, the college Presbyterian chaplain who extended an invitation to me to explore my faith. She's the one who introduced me to the beautiful indigenous culture of Guatemala that I hold near and dear to my heart, who gently showed me other perspectives and waited silently, patiently, ready to offer more questions or pseudo-answers while I processed the Bible from new positions. To this day, she's one of my dearest friends. She shows me agape love daily. Ours is a transformational relationship, and I cannot imagine doing life without her. Pluralism exists even in our sacred biblical text. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all stem from the same man, Abraham. If we examine the earliest periods of Israel's history, we see diverse tribes, complete with their own traditions, their own shrines, their own observances, and even their own gods. We see a swath of people using different names to describe a divine entity. I sometimes wonder if we're not describing the same divine entity and just using different terms. Ruth, who is for me one of the greatest examples of how to treat the immigrant among us. The Samaritan who encounters Jesus at the well, the Gentile and the Jew. These are just but a few of biblical examples of people who understand the divine differently. And yet, there is room for all of them, for all of us. Now, I think it's really easy to orient ourselves to binary thinking, particularly in our own theology. The Bible gives us, supposedly, I think, a lot of binaries: Alpha and Omega, heavens and earth, man and woman. And at first glance, those phrases set us up, right? 1 and 2. However, the "and" is critical, but I think often ignored. Alpha and Omega are just 2 letters, but any Greek will tell you, I'm talking about sorority Greek, right? Well, there's a whole string of letters in there, right? It's not just Alpha and Omega, there's an alphabet. We understand heaven and earth to include everything between the sky and the ground. So ought we not understand the "and" in man and woman to include other gendered expressions? The "and" is the spectrum of experience. The "and" to me is the most inclusive word. Binary, to quote Richard Rohr, is a zero-sum game of win or lose. This next opinion is my own. I was a little nervous. It might be unpopular, but here goes. Binary to me is cancel culture. Binary thinking does not allow me to love my real physical neighbor a few houses down from my own, who is generously kind to my puppy and my boys on our walks, but who wears a Women for Trump t-shirt every weekend. Binary thinking would have me cut her out wholesale and other people much closer to me in emotional proximity who I deeply love and deeply disagree with. I don't understand them always, and always I don't feel like it can align. Binary allows us to cop out. It means all or nothing, and it doesn't allow for the ambiguity that is the truth of our human experience. Either or means all or nothing. If I abided by those rules, I'd find myself dissatisfied in almost all areas of my life. We take the good with the bad. We take the sum of the parts. I love the outdoors, which I think is no secret. John Muir is a renowned conservationist who founded the Sierra Club. He's the man behind the famous quote, "The mountains are calling and I must go." He's huge in the world of earth conservation. He also held racist views, and like many of the Sierra Club's original members, was a white supremacist. His derogatory comments about both Black and Indigenous peoples are extremely damaging, extremely hurtful. He later evolved those views, but that doesn't erase his legacy of pain inflicted on others. And yet, there's a huge difference, I think, between holding folks accountable and not tolerating hate and cancel culture. Cancel culture is a dangerous game because it throws the lesson away. Erasing Muir and others like him, I'm thinking of Dr. Seuss, for example, doesn't allow us to investigate the ways in which white supremacy is deeply entrenched in all facets of American history. Instead, what if we sit with the complicated, problematic narrative historical figures hold? Here again, the and becomes vital. Yes, Muir was instrumental in conservation efforts, and he was a racist. And we know that Black, Indigenous people of color are far less represented in outdoor conservation organizations, and that advertising from companies is only just now targeting inclusivity in the outdoor recreation and conservation space. Might Muir's legacy have something to do with that? Might we gain something by studying that? For what it's worth, I don't think Jesus dealt in binaries. I don't think he was about cancel culture either. He was about complicating things. Y'all, I feel like if Jesus was about binaries, he'd spell it out straight, like we would get maybe after the Sermon of the Mount, like a Commandments 2.0 in really short, simple sentences, like don't do this, right? He didn't do that. The man spoke in parables, like riddles, right? And that lead to multiple interpretations, which can be investigated from multiple perspectives, parables that complicated the teachings of the Pharisees, complicated popular opinion, parables that quite frankly make us sit in ambiguity. I've lost track of time in COVID. I feel like this series wasn't that long ago, but I don't really know. Scott and I were here and we were talking about the very different interpretations of the parable of the sower. In fact, as a church, we spent a whole series on that. Different lenses, different ways of seeing. Scott was no more right or wrong in his interpretation than I was in mine. In fact, we took a few weeks to prep for that Sunday, and we both appreciated coming away with a deeper understanding of the text. Scott's views, different because of his positionality, made up of his varied experiences, didn't threaten or take away from my own positionality, but rather added value and substance to my understanding. Transformational relationship. It wasn't his way or mine, it was yes. Yes, and. We met each other in mutual respect and love. When we see through the lens of and, things open up. Someone can suffer from depression and be a highly functional working professional and mother. Been there, can attest. Someone can be autistic and incredibly intelligent. Someone can vote differently than you and still care deeply for people. I know that's hard to believe, but it can. Someone can be liberal and pro-life, can be a nun and pro-choice. Ambiguity abounds, and that is perfectly welcomed, or it ought to be. Last week, David brought up Paul and his letter to the Galatian community. He referenced this well-known passage of Scripture. The text wrestles with contradiction. It pushes against binaries. There is neither Gentile or Jew, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for all are one in Christ Jesus. In that passage, we see ambiguity embraced. The binary is bucked, tossed aside. To confront and dismantle binary thinking requires cognitive maturity. Cognitive maturity indicates an awareness that there may be multiple potential perspectives on any given situation, on any given problem, proposal, issue. A person who strongly manifests cognitive maturity endeavors to take this into consideration when making important decisions. Remember, I'm not a psychologist. That's verbatim from Insight Assessment. I Googled it, just so you know. Just making sure. What cognitive maturity does, it makes space for the other. More importantly, it makes space for the other that you may not yet understand, or you may not yet like, and to be quite frank, may never. That's okay. I'll be honest, this is hard. I can tell you a dozen stories of micro and macro aggressions hurled my way. Tell you a dozen more stories of students and colleagues who dismissed me because of the color of my skin and my gender. People who purposefully kept the relationship transactional in a bold refusal to see my otherness. And I've also struggled with this mightily myself this past season. I've also stubbornly not engaged in meaningful dialogue with others in a hurtful refusal to understand their point of view. Agape love is the highest achievement humans can reach, an emulation of Christ's love for us. I'd argue agape love is an undercurrent of all religions. I'd argue that agape love is the answer, folks. I'm finally making my way through Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. Robin is a scientist and a professor and a Potawatomi woman. Her book explores the connectedness between scientific knowledge and indigenous spirituality, and it's a wonderful example of dualism. The second chapter is about strawberries. As a girl, Robin would feast on wild patches that grew in the lands behind her house. She talks about the gift of the strawberry and how viewing the strawberry as a gift changed her perspective. A gift, she says, creates ongoing relationship. A gift is different than simply exchanging a commodity. If we treated the land as a gift instead of an expendable commodity, we'd shift our perspective. It is human perception, she says, that makes the world a gift. Gratitude, agape love, these are the fruits of dualism. But it cannot be achieved if we embrace and cling to our biases, if we operate in zero-tolerance culture that would have us simply cancel out what we don't like. I am nowhere near reaching spiritual maturity or cognitive maturity. But I know if I want to try to achieve that, I have to make room for other voices. What that looks like for me is following people that I don't necessarily espouse the same ideals. What it means is that I try to vary my social feeds so that I'm seeing multiple perspectives. What it means is that I bite my tongue and try to listen first. And pray. Pray that we have hearts that open up to agape love. And that's all I got, which is why I wanted them to end on the song. But I'll close this out in prayer, and we'll see how it goes. God, with many names and faces, help us to encounter you. Help us to encounter you in the gift of a strawberry, or in the face of the other we don't quite understand. Help us to unyoke from our biases. Help us see them in the first place, actually. Help us move towards dualism, towards agape love, towards transformation that can heal the broken places, that will usher in heaven here on earth. And please forgive our slowness in this endeavor, our forgetfulness. Thank you for always seeing us through, for offering agape love over and over and over again. May we love like you do, Jesus. May we love like you do. Amen.
As we close, I want to invite you to stand with us. And we're going to sing this song that we started with this morning, Reckless Love. And as I was listening, I think that we get into a space where we feel the tension of the binary. And this kind of love, this agape love, starts to turn into like an ideal, or maybe something that's like more in theory, like that would be nice if it could happen. And I wonder what it would look like for us to commit to the moments of agape love. What does it look like for us to take just one part of our lives, one relationship, one person that maybe came to mind this morning as Sean was speaking, and commit to a love that would transform who you are. What would that look like? We're going to sing together, and it is so good to sing with you. For a year, we've sang to an empty room, and we've missed you. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for singing with us, for showing up. It is better together.
No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing it out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't hurt it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Door you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
Thank you so much for singing this morning. Amen. Go, love, be loved, and love the world around you. Love yourself, love your friends, love your family, love your neighbors. We love you, and we're so glad that you're here this morning. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.
I see the reflection in your eyes. I see the reflection